Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, 33 years ago, the world adopted the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. The convention is based on four fundamental principles: rights to non-discrimination, survival and development, protection and participation of the child. The global agreement is meant to shape and protect every child in the world. According to the UN, massive progress has happened because of agreements like the convention, but much is still left undone. Since coming into effect each year on November 20th, the UN reminds the world to take stock of its children and their growth. This year, the commemorative day is focused on providing a more equal and inclusive world for children. It is meant to remind countries that no child can be left behind in accessing their full rights. So, where are we in protecting and providing for the African child, especially those in hard-to-reach areas because of conflict or extremist activities? Let's take stock of that now. We'll meet our guest. Eloviano Abolarin is boy, child, and mental health advocate. We also have Marcus Solomon. He's founder of Children's Resource Center in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on The Square.
You're welcome.
Great. For some reason, I assumed that there were two.
My pleasure.
Great. I assume there were two men on the show today, and yes. But let's start the conversation, and I'll start with you, Marcus. Why is it important that we commemorate this day every year?
Firstly, let me say thank you for inviting.
I believe,
Eloviano,
regardless of...
Eloviano, let's have Marcus tell us that first. That was for Marcus.
Oh, okay. All right.
Kemi, thank you very much for inviting me. And of course, I speak on behalf of my organization, the Children's Resource Center, which is 40 years old this year. Now, of course, we've always been part of celebrating International Children's Day, National South African Children's Day, and so on. But for us, for many years now, we've used this day to remind ourselves that Children's Day is every day. I think that's an important point at which to start. Children don't have one day a year. They have every day, every minute of the day, etc. And of course, how far have we come since the United Nations declared an international chain? In fact, we've moved backwards. I'll use my country as an example. Recent studies have shown that children in South Africa, the situation has actually become worse. And in many cases across the continent, especially in countries like the Congo, the Republic of Congo, and many other African states, because of war, poverty, terrible violence, gender-based violence, and of course, violence on children. So we have actually gone back.
I see. We'll talk more about that backward movement and what we can do to, retrace our steps to goodness. Eloviano, let me take your initial thoughts also on the significance of this day, particularly to the African child.
Earlier today, I posted something on my LinkedIn, and I said, every child is unique and different, and we must celebrate every child regardless of their mental state or physical abilities. They should be understood and appreciated and able to, participate and contribute meaningfully in our society. And so for World Children's Day, it's according to, it's every day we must celebrate them. We must understand the children we have around us, and we must always celebrate our children every day.
Every day, indeed. But Marcus, you say that when we take stock of how far we have come, it would seem that the continent has gone backwards in protecting its children. How so?
Yeah, because the governments have completely neglected the lives not only of children, of whole communities. In fact, most of our governments have fared very poorly. In fact, let me just go back a minute. Our approach to the issue of children has been, firstly, that children have agency. What we mean by that is then children can also be active participants, not only building, but also sustaining a better world. So our main emphasis as an organization is to help children to mobilize a national movement of children. But we also have partners in Namibia, and our dream, of course, is to build a national movement of children across the African continent, a Pan-African movement for children. By children, we don't mean youth, we mean children of primary school going age. Now, why have we gone backwards? And I'll use my own country again. South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world in terms of wealth distribution. Recent studies of research by prominent food and climate scientists have shown the situation of children have become worse. For example, there are 4 million children in this country that are stunted, both boys and girls. Another 10 million children are going hungry every day. And of course, the main culprits is the South African government because it's failed to provide the children and ensure that they enjoy a basic right enshrined in the Constitution. They are not providing children, enabling them to get access to not only the quantity of food they need, but also the quality. And the partners in that crime is the private sector, the food industry. In fact, the research has found that children, the food that the private companies, they make food for profit and they make very poor quality food. That is one of the most, in fact, the worst crimes committed by the food company. So it's really how governments have failed to use the resources of this very rich continent to enable its children and its communities to have access so they can live a healthy life.
Very well. Eloviano, what would the case be in Nigeria as far as how seriously the rights of the child or of the Nigerian child has been taken by government after government? What would you say?
I would say presently the rate of children going to school is really declining. And I also want to focus on the area of children with cognitive challenges. You know, those who have, I will use myself as a case study. You know, while growing up in school, I find it difficult to really read, you know, to not to understand, I read to understand, you know, but to assimilate and also to put it down in writing during exams. But I enjoy listening to people, you know, listening to discussions. So in listening to discussions, I was able to write, you know, do well in my exams. And so we have cases of children who have cognitive challenges that can result to learning delays and difficulties. You know, we don't have plans for this set of children in Lagos, especially in Nigeria. Despite the fact that we have challenges of, you know, low rate of children going to school at this moment due to poverty, due to lack of funds, and, you know, parents who are not even paying attention to their children anymore. They're just because they want to meet up with standard of living of the society. So this set of children who have disorder in paying attention. We call it attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. You know, we also have the Down syndrome set of category. So we need to take care of this set of children as well. You know, because we need to listen to them. We need to pay attention to them. We need to focus on giving them balanced society. It is not about treating every children in exactly the same way, but also treating every child fairly and paying attention to their individual, you know, background, interests, and needs. And so in Nigeria presently, the education system is really backward, and we are praying for the government to really come up with better ways to put back children into school.
We'll make some suggestions about that, you know, as our discussion progresses. But let me just jump on something that you said about the decline in education of the Nigerian child. And statistics show that 18.5 million of Nigerians' children are currently out of school. My question is, based on your work, what do you think is the cause for the increasing numbers of children who are currently out of school?
Poverty. Number one is poverty. And number two is we have parents who are no longer paying attention to their children. You know, everybody is going out there, they leave the house in the morning. You find parents leaving the home as early as 4 a.m. just to, you know, get the basic needs for their children. You know, they don't care to see if their children are actually going to the school, especially children from ages 11 to 18 thereabouts. You know, you see them staying back at home, going to video game centers, you know, doing all sorts, paying attention to internet, doing all sorts on the internet. So I see this as high level of poverty in the society, you know, which is not making parents concentrate on their children. That is the degree of the poverty level is so high that parents are no longer concentrating on their children. So I think that is the primary reason why most children are out of school. And also, children tend to tell you that, oh, I'm out of school because my parents cannot afford to pay so amount of, you know, levy. And these levy are actually very small. They're actually very little. So levy paying and, you know, poverty, in short, is the reason for out of school children presently, and the internet.
We'll talk about that digital divide as well. But Marcus, while we're on education, earlier you made reference to children who are in, you know, conflict and war areas, and it's really hard to reach them with resources. I just want us to dig down further on what some of the obstacles are for children, particularly in those areas, and how we can go around those obstacles. Marcus, what can you share with us?
Yeah, look, just 1 second.
Right. We're discussing the rights. Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, look, communities, movements, parents, the unions, the faith-based organizations have made several recommendations. The point is, these are not even taken notice of. We don't have the civil society organized now to ensure that whatever solutions we come up with are implemented. In fact, over the last 30 years of the new South Africa, communities have been completely disempowered. This new government under the ANC leadership has completely taken control of all the resources. In fact, South Africa is now being labeled as a failed state. So there's a complete new need to rebuild communities so that they can take control of their lives. For example, South Africa every day now, and talking about war situation, it's not only in countries where there is conflict between armed groups. In South Africa every day, 70 people are killed, 3 women by their own partners, 10 children get raped. So South Africa is at war with itself, like in many other African states. So the thing is for communities to begin to organize themselves. Now that is going to take a long time. But the main problem with the small political elite, with the old colonialist, rich and mainly white males, big companies have co-opted the main leadership of the liberation movement. So it's very difficult. So the solutions lie with the people. For example, mothers in South Africa are almost exclusively responsible for looking after and trying to save the children from the horrible crimes, the terrible hunger. Now we can, as I said, and you're asking very good questions. The thing is, we can come up with all the solutions. Just today, I saw in your own news item the terrible floods in Mozambique. What has been done? Very little. Children, mothers, communities are drowning in big numbers. The gardens and the food supplies that they themselves have built. So it's going to take a long time. But there are positive indications and activities in South Africa. But it's mainly driven by mothers.
Very well. And so perhaps our focus should be on helping women. Would that be a solution?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think that is really to empower and help our mothers to be organized, to help them. And by the way, South Africa, besides the terrible hunger and our women, South Africa's got the highest rate of gender-based violence on this planet, the highest. For us, we are saying our movement, for children, the future is now. If they don't have it now, they are not going to have tomorrow. In fact, the children, the adults who are experiencing all these terrible and causing these terrible crimes on our continent are people who are children who lived in poverty.
Very well. Eloviano,
Poverty of love.
Eloviano, as we wrap up on education and move on to other things that challenge the rights of the child, Nigeria has its fair share of children in communities that are hard to reach because of conflict, because of natural disasters, as we have seen fairly recently. What would be some of the suggestions you would make to, community leaders and adults in those communities as to how they can continue to protect and help children grow efficiently and effectively?
Okay, presently we have a particular young guy who is doing so well in helping children in communities who are not able to get quality education. He did something with, his name is Julius Ilori, and is the founder of Learner's Corner. He has this online gadget for that he has been distributing and helping communities with their community children with their education. So these are the ways we could, reach out to these communities by taking down, these social media.
Well, it also brings me it brings me into a part of the conversation I was hoping we would have later. But that digital divide, you talked about the internet. But for a lot of these children who are in less developed communities, internet will be a challenge. And so, what are other ways that we could go around that? And really,
this device has been built, it's a device, it has all this, curriculum has been, set into it. So they only go with it and, they read it day by day. They have someone who will follow them through it all. So it has been packaged. It's a packaged device for communities, to go through. They only need someone who would help them, who would, give them the support, the everyday support to open this device and learn. And then they don't need to go through, they don't need to have any Wi-Fi. It's a device like, our normal cartoon tablet we have for our kids. So, and all of this syllabus has been written into it. So it's a full package for them to be able to learn and also follow up on other children who are going to school every day.
Well, sounds like a fantastic device, but what I want us to try and do is to see how individual adults, parents, guardians can also help in the upbringing and protection of the child. Besides this device, are there other ways that we as a people could be protecting our children?
Okay, so we can also empower community leaders. We can empower the women in the communities because, we women, we have this ability to also watch over our children, pay attention to them. And so when these women are empowered, they're able to pay attention to their kids, they're able to listen to them and also pull them through this educational, phase. Because these children are our future. And so we need to empower the children, we need to empower community leaders, find spaces for them where we can build small structure, where these children can also learn. It is important we also empower community leaders and
Indeed.
empower the women especially so that
Indeed.
they can pay attention to their children.
Indeed. So Marcus, let's talk about the digital divide now. How wide is it on the continent, and perhaps use South Africa as an example? How bad is it? Hello, Marcus, can you hear me? If you're talking, then you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Right, go ahead.
Just repeat your question, please.
So I was asking about the digital divide, and if you could use the South African example as to how wide or narrow it is in the country.
No, our main approach, Kemi, is that, and I see it's written on your screen, our main underlying philosophy is that children have agency. And I think, like with women, they need to be organized, empowered to read, to write, to know their rights, but also, like South Africa, create gardens, help build peace, friendship, and solidarity amongst children. But it needs to be more than just a webinar discussion. It needs to be built at street level, in villages, schools, where they exist, faith-based institutions.
How about internet use? How important is it for us to close the gap between children who have access and children who do not have access?
Well, I mean, there is a movement now to make the website and the internet free, but that's a difficult task. But ultimately, it has to be through building social cohesion so that children can learn to live in peace with each other, because we've got very little choice where the children are living. And some of our mothers who've come to the table, and as I've said, it's mainly mothers, they need to build peace, friendship, and solidarity. We are entering a terrible challenge. Climate change is going to change our planet not only the planet, of course, for the worse. And the most vulnerable are going to be, as we've seen in Mozambique, we've seen in Natal, KwaZulu-Natal, that they are going to be the most vulnerable. So the issue of uniting our people, building disaster management systems in which children are actively involved, it's a question of survival. And they have to now become actively involved in every aspect of the life of the village, the city, and the town. Yeah. So it's build movements of mothers, build unity of children, and building the movement.
Very well. Eloviano, I'll just take your thoughts quickly on this before we take our very last break for today's edition. The internet use and children. How important is it for the Nigerian child, for instance, to be able to get access to the internet?
It is very important that if they are using it positively, it is very important for their use academically. But at the moment, we found that a lot of children in Nigeria, or maybe globally, but in Nigeria, as I'm a Nigerian, they're using the internet for other purposes. And so, for academically, they could use it for their best interest. If the government can provide free access to internet, in their respective schools, there should be free access to Wi-Fi, in their respective schools, where they can study and, Google, do whatever they want to do.
Eloviano, you were talking to us about the importance of checking the quality of use of the internet or digital devices by children on the continent. What role can parents play in this?
Okay, so there's this particular code that went viral at a point in time. They could use this code, via Google Drive. They could use this code and check what their children, watch on the internet, what they type, what they listen to on the internet. They could, watch, get to frame up what they do instead of them giving them full access. They could also release their phone when they want to do their assignment, because we know of some schools who do their assignment via internet. So they could also give them these phones to use, and also for those who want to have access to their kids while they are, they just need to monitor their children with this Google Drive code that was passed across, that went viral months back. And so this way they are able to monitor their children, what they do, what they listen to, and who they talk to on the internet. The internet is very good, but the bad usage of it is what causes so many things right now with the kids, because you don't know who they are talking to, you don't know who their influencers are, who they are watching. And so the use of this code will help parents to limit what their children watch and listen to.
So Marcus, I'll come to you with this then. Where do we draw the line as parents and guardians and even community leaders between protecting the child and the privacy of the child?
I think we should start with the child. But more than that, I think we should start with the people who promote all the horrible things that are being done via social media, the big corporate world. Studies have shown, cultural studies and research has shown that it's the big corporate world, through their complete monopoly of access to the entertainment world, the cultural world, the sports world. So they control what happens there. We need to start there, and the state is responsible for that. Let's not again blame the mothers and the community who have little technical skills. Besides that, when we ask parents to monitor their children, they themselves have so little access to knowledge and skills. We're asking now more of them. I think we should start with where the problem lies. The private industries, the state that has failed. In fact, the state in most countries are in the pockets of the big companies. So the digital world is inaccessible, but is also technological. It is very expensive. We need skills and therefore the training. But the most important thing, let's build our communities where the children live with each other. Africa is very rich culturally. Dance, music, storytelling. Some of the most beautiful stories come from the African continent. So street culture. Let us build communities where people interact, not via the social media, because this is where one of the problems lies. People don't have social cohesion.
People don't interact enough in person.
Yeah.
I apologize, I'm cutting your thoughts on that, but I just want us to, because of time, move on to another topic that is very thorny when it comes to Africa as a continent. The United Nations is saying that 8.9 million of children around the world will join the force by the end of the year, adding to the 160 million who are already in the workforce. I want us to talk about child labor because on the continent, there is that line that seems to question whether what some people do by asking their children to help them on jobs or help to cater for their families is a kind of child labor, because there's poverty on one hand and there's, that situation also there. I'll come to you with that, Eloviano. What should be the understanding that Africans should have about children in labor?
It's a bit dicey right now because of what the children watch on the internet, because of what they're exposed to. They're exposed to so many things on the internet. So most children right now also want to work. You see them after school, they want to work, they want to sell something, they are learning a particular skill just to also make money and be the influencer or the social, that person, that motivator they see on the internet, you know, they want to have their own money. And so child labor is, I don't want to say child labor is, I feel most of them are pushing themselves to do all of this work. You know, they are living their childhood, so they are not focusing on being a child. You know, most of all these children are not focusing on being a child anymore. They want to work, they want to earn money, they want to make money, they want to be beautiful, they want to look big, they want to appear big, because the internet has influenced them in, I don't want to say in a negative way, but I feel parents have a role to play in this area where children, you know, come back from school and they want to go and learn a particular skill.
Yes.
It is not, I'm not saying it is bad, but they could learn that skill maybe after their higher education, but not when they are still, you know, in their primary or secondary school level. And so that is why we see most children out there doing so many things they are not supposed to be doing. They are meant to be at home, reading, studying, you know, for that particular.
That's one side of this that, you know, had not come into perspective for me. I'm wondering what, Marcus, you think about the issue of child labor and the need for families to fend for themselves.
Well, again, Keminni, we come back to the source of the problem. The resources of the countries, our countries and the continent, are being exploited by the rich. And the political elite in our countries have been co-opted to rule in favor and govern in favor of the rich. So people are starving, as you can see from the pictures there. Children are forced to work. They have to help the parents, and the parents exploit the children. We have a huge unemployment problem in this country, and on the continent as a whole. The land has been taken, so the source of the wealth, the food supplies, people have been robbed of those sources. So it's a terrible situation, and I think we must go back. The governments, the states must take back the land, the factories, provide employment, etc. Now, that is why parents and children have, as Olivia has so adequately explained, children have to fend for themselves. But it doesn't mean that, and we've shown that we are all for what we call education with production. Learning skills at schools, making gardens, protecting our rivers, building little dams, looking after the animals. In fact, it's a long tradition on the continent. Children have to look after cattle. They must help care for other children. That culture and that tradition is being destroyed because of the poverty. Yeah? So yes, children are working because of poverty, but it doesn't mean children shouldn't be learning basic skills. And it comes back to the source. I think we need to remind ourselves we can fend for ourselves. A lot of studies.
Very well.
And I'm going to come back to the role of TV. National TVs must have more time, less time for advertising, sugary foods, all the terrible things. For example, we can use our TVs to run education awareness programs to show what is possible. And our academics need to do more research to do how we can solve the issue of literacy or illiteracy. South Africa is one of the highest illiteracy rates in the world.
So Marcus, here's my final question to you. You said something instructive earlier about making sure that children are active participants in this. How can we make that happen?
Thank you very much. Look at our website, www.childrensmovement.org. What we've shown, children have one of the most creative imaginations in our communities. Let's use that. Their imagination, they've got lots of creativity and wonderful ideas. Let's build a movement across the continent. In every village, there must be a group of children's movement especially the girls. Let's build that. Let's build the creativity of our children, that age, what we call agency, so that they can begin to help look after themselves. The time ahead is going to be terrible. The violence, but importantly, the heating up of the climate of the planet is going to create serious challenges. We have to empower children, use the TV, and use the model we've developed. Children have agency. We don't have to learn from South Africa. They are right there in our communities.
Right.
They've shown it. Right. Thank you very much.
Eloviano, take us home on this one. These conventions, as fantastic as they are, do not hold any governments to account as to, how they're dealing with the children, I beg your pardon, in their communities. So make some suggestions as to how governments can be held accountable. How do we hold our community leaders accountable? How do we hold our parents and guardians accountable for how children turn up?
We can hold them responsible by, before we can hold them responsible, they must have, promised us something for the children. They must have, given their word, for the children. And so we can hold them accountable if these provisions are not met. We can hold them accountable if, the welfare and the academic welfare of these children are not met. For example, if they are to give scholarships, free internet to children in schools. So if all of these things are not met, we parents and communities, we parents especially, are to hold them accountable. We are also to hold our community leaders because these are the people who go and meet the government. We cry to the community goes to the government. And so we go to the community and cry back to them that these are not met. And so we should have list of things we want the government to do for us as the people. So if they don't meet up with all of these things, we can now go back to them.
All right. So listen.
Tell them what we want.
If children are our future, and we have many of them on the continent, and we are unable to make the necessary changes that we have spoken about that are all over in papers, literature papers, all over the world, we are unable to make the necessary changes. What does our future look like, Eloviano?
I tell you, the children right now, they are our future. And so if the education system is not taken care of right now, then the future of our country, the future of our nation is absolutely zero, because education is the top notch of any society to grow, is the top notch, for any society to develop. We need people who are intelligent, who are smart, who are outspoken. And so if they're not educated, how will they be able to lead, people? How will they be able to do well? And so we just need people to fill up the education system. We don't need illiterates anymore. We don't need illiterate.
Eloviano, I'm grateful for your insights on the program today. Marcos, I am absolutely pleased you could join us today on this discussion. Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you, too, for watching at home. We hope that you begin to take the decisions that affect the children in your community, in your own home. This is Village Square Africa, and my name is Keminni Amanor. I'll see you same time tomorrow. Goodbye.